I think we can call to order. We'll get started. We're live. Tonight we're doing a portion of the CIP. We'll start with the DPW, move to IT and facilities.
Yeah, you see
Is everything working? Okay.
You are, yes, Bruce.
We were kidding.
No,
Take
no.
too long.
She's here, you just.
I'll hurt myself.
So Bruce, before you get started, the committee has heard of your retirement, and we are all very sad to see you go. Happy for you. Hopefully you're going someplace where you don't need any snow plowing. You don't have to worry about the snow.
That's definitely one of the high goals. Well, thank you. The finance committees over the years have been great. We've worked very well together, always. Asked great questions. Most of the time I was able to answer them. And it was great. We really did have a good relationship. And, like I used to say to Alan when he was chairman, I'd come in and I said, gee, I missed you guys. So he used to get a kick out of it.
I think you'll be incredibly hard to replace because
Thank you.
You've done such a fantastic job with the DPW and with the water and sewer, and I think we're all beneficiaries of your time here.
Well, thank you. It's been a great place to work. I was talking to I think Brian from the newspaper today, and talking about you always get those calls that people give you a hard time about all that. But in general, the people it's amazing how many people call back and thank us, or don't even have a complaint, just thank us. And it's a great place to work. We really enjoy ourselves here. And the best part is we get a lot done, and we have fun doing it. So it's great. Great. Thank you. I'll miss a lot of people. Yeah. Thank
Any
you.
further comments before we get started?
Well, I just wanted to say, did we chase you off?
No, it's time. I was going to wait one more year. I have some things that I needed to get taken care of health-wise, nothing serious. And so I said, why wait for the new building? If you have been by the DPW, it's a nightmare down there right now, but it's going along good, and with all the construction. And I said, well, maybe I'll move into the next. But then I said, that's for the next person. I'd miss my little hole in the wall there, so it's great. But thank you. No, not at all. All right. Thank you. Okay. So the way we usually do this is you want to do Public Works budget first?
Yes.
CIP first? Okay,
Yeah.
good. Not an awful lot of changes. I don't even think there's any changes from what we had put in the plan from the year before. So the biggest part of, for those that haven't been on the board before, that might be new on the finance, the biggest part of my Public Works CIP is always the pavement management program. And what we do with that is about every 5 years, we contract with a consultant, and they go through and they rate and ride every road in town. They rate it 0 to 100 based on a lot of different criteria or what needs to be done, and they put together their recommendations on what kind of rehabilitation needs to be done and so forth. And from that, I then put together each year a 5-year plan for the capital improvement. And in that, there's usually a section for what's known as the Chapter 90 state aid money. That's usually somewhere around 800 and something thousand. It varies, 850, 860, somewhere in that range. And then another thing that always made me lucky to work in North Andover, because it's one of the few towns that does this, is that the town meeting gives another 400,000 to that. Because the number is what they tell you should do is spend on the sides of the town. We have about 145 to 150 miles of roads. Should spend about $1 million a year upgrading your road. And that's what we do. We spend $1 million, we do, and you won't believe it, that does sections of about 10 roads. So, but we've really made, I think, a good dent in it since we did this. I think we started in 2009, something like that, with the program, and we've been moving along through that. And the idea is, in the Chapter 90, we use the state aid Chapter 90. We use that for the main roads, the Salem streets and the Johnson streets and the Marble Ridge, and those that are what they call arterial and collectors. And then we use the local money to get into those roads that you never have enough money left over from Chapter 90 to do, the subdivision roads, some of those roads that aren't accepted. And I think we're pretty successful in getting that done. So this year, in the way I usually put this together is we put the 5-year plan together and attach it to the sheets, and that's in your booklet. The first one, it's at page 32, and then the plan goes on from 34 on, and it's a 5-year plan. Now, it doesn't mean that these are totally cast in concrete. If it looks like a road is deteriorating a little quicker than we anticipated, then we'll probably we move it around back and forth a little bit. But usually the first year is pretty much set, unless we find something after a tough winter that we have to change something. So that's pretty much what's in there. Like I said, we spend about a little over $1 million each year, and the good chunk of that is the state grant. So, the other thing that we do in here is we usually do the crack sealing, which is when you have a road that's been paved the last few years, and maybe after about 3 or 4 years, we go through, and what they tell you to do is in the whole process of this is go in and take care of your good roads just as much as you do something with your bad roads, and that's what we do. We do crack sealing every year or something else that needs to be done. So, good. Any questions on pavement management?
It's a great plan.
It is a great plan. It always is, and it's it also can when people have some questions about where's my street, what are we going to do? We do that. You can use this plan to tell you, well, it's not that bad. It's maybe in a couple of years you're going to get it done. So
Someone's really looking at these things, and we've made a priority, and
Mhm.
people are looking at it. So
Good.
it's-
Yep.
You can't do better than that.
Nope.
I don't.
Nope.
Unless when I went to the Mass Municipal Association annual meeting last year, there was this outfit that was trying to sell a Google-like thing on a camera on a truck.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They
yeah.
go around, they take pictures of all of the roads, and they classify the.
Yeah.
How many of those patch stripes did this road have on it last year compared to
Yeah.
the cracks that are appearing this year? I thought, wow.
Well, it's interesting that you mention that because they also use a ground penetrating radar. It gets pretty sophisticated.
Ground penetrating
Yeah.
radar.
And we used it. We tried. We did a sample section of roads based on the last review by the consultants, and we came out almost exactly the same. So again, it's nothing. It's. I think we do a pretty good job, and I think you can get too sophisticated with it,
Well, I suppose. Just
and
like
it gets kind of
anything else.
expensive too with that situation.
Where do you go for ground penetrating radar?
Well, what they'll do is they'll do a little ground penetrating radar because a lot of times you can't see what the issues are right below the surface. It's starting to.
Who does it?
These companies that you're talking
Oh, it's
about.
the same type of
Yeah,
thing. and
they'll have that
take a
outlet
satellite
in the.
thing?
No, they have it outfitted in the truck.
They have it in the truck.
Yeah, ground penetrating radar is used in a lot of things for utilities. The
I see.
utilities will use them to locate pipes or find out what's going on around their pipes and things. That's actually a technology that's been going on for a long time.
For a long time, and that's
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Good. All right.
Okay.
What is the risk of the Chapter 90 monies not being there that we're sort of planning?
I'm sorry?
What's the risk of the Chapter 90 monies not being there for us?
There's never, even in the worst times back, 2008, and then earlier than that, I think in the early 2000s, it was always there. It just got reduced and then came back again. They're in the process now of, we're under a 5-year contract, and they're going to be re-upping the 5-year contract, and they'll kind of show it. What we try to do in the public works profession is we try to get them to do a 3-year plan for us, but they just don't want to do that. They give out the money every year. Now, what that does is, and we're fortunate because I always had a little bit of money in the bank that I was able to use, but some communities don't wait for that money, and they can't use it until July 1st. Now everybody's in the mix to get that roads paved July 1st. And what the public works profession is trying to do is get the legislature to do is give us a 3-year plan. But the legislators don't seem to want to do that, so we'll see what happens.
What can we do about that?
I would talk to the legislators. So we all have. That's what we do. We write letters to the legislature, to Mass DOT to try to do that. And it's for some reason, and maybe it's not a priority for them in the legislature. I don't know. But it would be a big plus for us.
Where would we find those bills? Where would we find that proposed legislation or bills?
It's
Would
usually
that be
through
on the Mass Municipal site?
You might, and Mass DOT might have it, Mass Highway Association, but MMA is definitely a big proponent of that. Our group usually uses them. Yep.
To directly answer the question, behind local aid, traditional, unrestricted, and Chapter 78, Chapter 90 is the most protected aid. It's what the legislative delegation and every governor has recognized as the most obvious way to return dollars from lottery and other means to communities, because it's about the roads, right? So they can see the tangible response to what happens. That number went up, I think, 2 or 3 fiscal years ago. In recognition, the economy was a little stronger. So I would say if they start talking about eliminating Chapter 90, then there are some pretty catastrophic things happening at a state level.
Yep.
Because they haven't eliminated it in decades.
Okay, thank you.
So what's the percentage of roads we can actually, with the 1.2 million, you can fix? Are we talking a percent, 2% each year?
A little bit more than that. It's probably, we can do probably somewhere between 3 and 5% we usually do, I think. Yep.
Are we actually growing our street?
No.
mileage?
No, very little. It's not growing like some of the subdivision work that was done in the 80s and early 90s. We have a few additional roads, but not very many.
And most of the time, the new subdivision roads, the developers build the road, right, and then connect in and apply.
Exactly, yeah. And there's pretty strict, the planning board rules and regulations on building the roads are much stricter than they were in, the 60s and 70s. So, yeah. And so you get a pretty good road when it's turned over.
So with 4%, so you basically, is that 25 years? Every 25 years a road?
You get, yeah.
So does that, and that's
Right, but again, if something
Live.
does happen, you might bring it up faster, but it's usually about 20, 25 years.
Useful life of a road on sort of touch road, curb to curb, after being replaced is 20 years and standard. I would say most communities are on a 50 to 70 year replacement cycle.
Mhm.
By adding 50% to our total, we're in a very aggressive cycle to be at 25 years. Because obviously some roads go untouched depending on the nature of the use.
Right.
You can have a
Right,
road that has very little direct use that would need to be replaced with 30 or 35.
Well, you have traffic and.
But
Traffic utilities, maybe, there's a lot of utilities that need to be replaced for some reason, both, not just ours, but also the utility companies. Once they start digging into the street, it usually starts deteriorating the pavement faster. Okay, good.
Any more questions? Oh, go
I
ahead.
just have a quick question.
Yep.
If a utility like Verizon or a private company digs into those roads, do they have to pay us any sort of a premium for doing that? Because
No.
they're undermining that infrastructure.
No, but
No?
what they have to do is they have to restore it to federal and state standards and that we monitor. And we actually, with the gas company, have a pretty good relationship, and they do a pretty good job of replacing and redoing the paving. And then we also don't let them dig into the roads before 3 to 4 years. So. So we coordinate with them every year, what we're paving, what they're doing. Every once in a while, there's one, uh-oh, but usually,
Terrible.
we usually work it out. That's why last year I was gonna do Peter Street, that was in the plan, and we're about ready to do it. That's that little section of 133 that goes from 125 down to 114, down
Yeah.
to CVS, and we kind of moved it up in the plan because it deteriorated, and we kind of caught them off guard, and so they're going to do the first thing in the spring, and then we'll pave it after that. So those type of things, but we have a good relationship.
Right.
National Grid usually doesn't, we don't have a lot of underground electrical, so it's not too bad.
What kind of warranty do they give you? What kind of warranty do they give you, these utility companies?
There's no real warranty, however, there is the standards that they have to adhere to, and then if there's any issues with deteriorating trenches, we'll manage that and work with them, and they'll come back and fix it.
So
and
how
they've
long
always
can
been
you
pretty
go
good.
after them?
How long?
Yeah.
2 or 3 years, maybe 3 years.
I mean, the
something like
direct
that.
answer is we do not have leverage against
Yeah.
utilities. The goal has to be to get the utility to do the work before we get on the roadway. Because once we get on the roadway and the utility comes in after us, we don't have strong control. We have a good relationship with them
Right.
and some other leverage points, but there are not specific standards or real warranties or guarantees to what they do. If you take a curb-to-curb replacement and you trench a roadway, you may have reduced that roadway's life from 20 years to 10.
Mm-hmm.
In cases like that, Bruce would say, okay, instead of filling the trench, you ended up in a roadway a year after we replaced it, and we asked you in advance, and you said, no, something changed. That's a case where Bruce would say, okay, I need you to replace from curb to curb now a stretch of the roadway rather than just filling the trench. Because once we fix the roadway, if they come in after us,
Yeah.
quite frankly, all bets are off.
Now, that happened on my road this year, actually. They did the gas, and then you guys came in after, and it's beautiful. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
really nice. Good coordination.
Yep, again, we have pretty good coordination, like I said, Andrew said, there's not a lot of leverage, but we have a good relationship, and sometimes, give and take on it. So,
No, they were good.
Good.
All right, I think we're good there.
good, okay, the other one is 47, that's the other piece of our regular capital improvement that we've been doing over the last few years, and that's the sidewalk reconstruction, and the emphasis on reconstruction, not new sidewalks. We've made the decision years ago that instead of extending any more sidewalks at this point, we needed to put some money into the sidewalks that we had. The exception, of course, being the safe routes to school. If anybody's around Green Street, that was state and federal funding that we used to do that. But that's generally what we do. We have a list of sidewalks that we find primarily around schools and elderly housing, but it does go out from there. Okay.
And what do you find in general on the sidewalks? What are the challenges as compared to the roads? 'Cause I seem
Trees.
to hear more about really?
Trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really the biggest challenge that we have. Do we take down a tree or impact the roots to get a good sidewalk so that people can get by, handicap and kids and stuff getting back? And it's always a balance. It's always a balance. And what we try to do now is pick different trees. Obviously, we have a pretty good senior foreman that understands trees, and when we're trying to pick the trees, we pick the ones that will least impact sidewalks. But there's always that issue. That's the biggest issue. Yeah. And then the other thing is, what do you put it back with? What concrete's 3 to 4 times more expensive than hot top. And also when you have the root issue, the hot top's a little bit more flexible, so we usually go back and, the bituminous concrete as opposed to concrete. So those are the big challenges with that. Yeah. Okay. The next one is that we're asking for in this town meeting, priority 3 is on 49, and that is the last phase of the Warnes High Street project. The first phase was, actually the very first phase was doing Elm Street years ago that we did with our own forces. in our own contracts. But the first part of this was the street lighting, which went in a couple of years ago. I think it was really successful. Some sidewalks were redone because of that. We ripped up the sidewalks and put them back. And this year, what we've been doing is designing the improvements and realigning of the intersection, which is a challenging intersection. Even with the money that we're going to put into it, it's still not going to be the best thing in the world, but at least we're going to be able to realign it and also help the handicap access on the sidewalks and around it, and that's some of the goal. We've worked very well with the abutters, the mills. We're going to be taking a little piece of sidewalk that they own, and they've been good to work with on that. So that is going out to bid probably in the next month and be constructed over the next construction season. I'm hoping to get it done before the end of the summer, but we'll see what happens on that. And then the next phase of that was always the streetscape improvements, which means some more sidewalks further down along Water Street towards Main Street, and also out to the other way towards the next street, East Water. And then some along where the mills are. We'll be working with them on realigning some of that down there. So that's what's in this phase. Hopefully, if we can find some places to put some trees and things like that.
So invest in the mills, are they also contributing to the cost?
They've done some work down on some of their in their sidewalks down there as well. Yep. And they're also helping us out with the land taking and so forth. So, yep, they've been a good partner.
Yeah.
In this.
I noticed that last night actually. That from the Stachy side to the other side, they don't quite.
No.
I rarely go that way, but because I usually go on Elm, but I just noticed that they don't line up exactly right. So that's what they're going to try to get it a little bit closer.
Yes, move it a little bit closer to that building that's on the Elm Street side if you're coming from Main Street on the right. So it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be much better. And then also, like I said, we're working the sidewalks, so that the ramps will actually have handicap ramps that are legal and not have such as steep access on and off, and crossing the street. It's still going to be pretty steep going down High Street, which I always get a kick out of it. High Street going down the hill, but the low part.
Great. Any questions on that? I had one question just for pure historical knowledge that you may or may not want to answer.
Okay.
And by all means, you can kick it off. But Stevens Street, when you're going, just when you come by, what are those condos? Why can't I think of the name? It should be right.
Mill Pond, yep.
Right as you come by Mill Pond and you cut through kind of the edge of Stevens Pond, and there's the little pond on the other side.
Mill Pond.
Yeah, that little
one of the 3 or 4 mill ponds.
Yeah, exactly. So, what's the history on that road? Because it seems like it's in it seems to wash off a little on either edge with the weather and like I said.
Before you mean where you go over the 2 pond, the conduit?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where you go.
Yeah. Actually, it's interesting you said that. I'm always concerned about that because it is key for our whole system that goes down through the old mill, and that's actually those conduits are pretty good shape. So I think that in the next couple of years, I'm not sure. I think it's in the plan that we're probably going to do some paving along in there, clean that up, put some curbing in. But it really overflows. We're usually there's some planks in the downstream side of that mill pond right near the condos that we monitor and take out, put back in, so that keeps from impacting that road. The challenge, I thought the challenging part was coming up to the top there. We cleaned that up
That's
about 5 or 6 years ago. That was quite a project. We took a lot of material out of there. That was almost a reconstruction project. I think we made a little bit that people don't slide down quite as much as they used to. Yeah. So, yeah. Okay.
Anything else? Well, again, thank you. We will.
Well, do we want to do the water and sewer?
Yeah.
Okay. So sewer capital improvements on 83. Your booklet.
Yes.
And then the first one's on 89, but 83 kind of lists the recommended projects. Only really one, and that's the improvement to the various pump stations. And that's one of the things I think when I came last year, we just finished an upgrade of a major one, raised pond. That's up and running. Just some work to be done in the spring with plantings and things like that. But that's been running since October, doing great. Big improvement because that was such an undersized pump station that's good. But we also have 21 others, and we're doing two things with that. Last year we got some money to start evaluating all of them. But while we're evaluating, each one of them needs a new generator or a new pump and those type of things. So that's what this money is used for. To upgrade those.
So speaking of generators, end of Campbell Road and Salem Street, looks like there's a backup generator.
Yep, there is.
Too?
Yep. There you go.
So that
That's why we need a new generator.
That system's not all that old, it's like 10 years, 12 years old.
Oh, I think it's a little older than that, but yeah,
I date myself.
yeah. I don't think it's ever been changed.
Okay.
It's the first one, yeah.
So this project that you were doing last year was a study of capital requirements for updating the individual and various pump and sewer stations, and that is still ongoing?
Yep, we're in the process of going out for proposals to get that started. So
Oh, I see. So, but do we have a master plan type of study for that?
that's what we're gonna do. We're
That's
going
what
out
you're
to get a
going to
master
do.
plan, right, on how to spend the money.
Ah, okay, great, wonderful.
Yep. And I'm hoping we can eliminate, I don't know if that's possible, but that'd be nice.
Okay.
So, yep.
Any more questions on the sewer, and then we can go to water?
Okay.
Or the money, the ozone
90
system.
Yep, 99, the ozone system, the ongoing ozone system. So we talked a little bit about this. Over the last few years, we've been pretty much redoing the whole water treatment plant without changing without building a new water treatment plant. The last really major parts of this is some of the tanks, which are in there. The next tank will be the fluoride tank that we're going to do. And the ozone system. And the ozone system is now designed or in the process of finishing up design, and this money will allow us to go out to bid and replace the ozone, which is one of the major parts of the treatment plant. It's the disinfectant, it's the clearing, it's like I said, it's the major part. And it's also one of the big energy users. So when we get the new one, and the one that's there, the system that's there now is 30 years old. When we get the new one, the technology has really increased and reduced power. So
is this on the way? So I mean,
it's
are we in
designed.
planning stage?
No, we're in the design. We're well beyond the planning stage. It's designed, and we'll probably be ready by the time this money's ready. When we're successful at town meeting to go out to bid. In July.
And then start
Constructing it, yep.
Yep.
And that'll be a good year. Good year, not longer.
just one thing, I mean, the disaster in Flint, Michigan was all over the news.
Mhm. Yeah.
And apparently it was, they added something to the water and it was too aggressive, and then the pipes, I don't know, I'm not
Yeah.
the expert, but
Yeah.
I was just wondering, I'm sure you know more about it.
Yep.
And could that ever be an issue here?
Well, it can always be an issue everywhere because you have to continue monitoring what you're doing. And one of the issues that happened in Flint is they changed the process. They went from one treatment plant from Detroit, I believe, and Flint went back on their own or something like that. And what happens in that is you change the process of clarifying the water and so forth. And what that did was because of the changes in the chemicals that they were using, it started leaching out some of the lead in the different things. And of course, they had a lot more lead than a system of our age. We've done a pretty good job of eliminating anything that had any lead in it years ago, and we constantly monitor. So we just went through a process of monitoring all the schools, all the municipal buildings, and identifying if there is anything that's lead. Where the lead usually comes out in a system like ours is what they call the gooseneck, which is where it comes from the water system and comes from the main water pipes and goes into the homes. Most of those, like I said, almost all of those have been eliminated years ago. So we're in pretty good shape. We continue to monitor it, though. You have to continue to monitor, take a look. We did have a couple of hits in the schools, but it really wasn't because, we have an issue with that lead in the water. It's what happens is, it's like I tell everybody, it's like what your mother told you, run the water before you use it, okay? Run the water a little bit before, especially if it's in a sink that hasn't been used for a long, long time. And that's where we found it, ones that where the sinks and were they're not used, and so you gotta wash them. Yeah, the solder, the brass, some of the brass fixtures, mostly the other, the place too, and they're replacing all of these a lot of times in the old water fountains.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we're in the process of changing them. So we're in pretty good shape. We're in very good shape. Most of the communities around here that way, and there's a lot of focus on it right now. So we've been monitoring it over the last year or so.
So Steve can add some detail. There were 9 hits out of 450 tested locations, none of which were potable water or water that was consumed by people. Standing water.
Okay. So if you're going to look at the plant as a whole, and just the water treatment plant as a whole, and I've been, steadily investing in it over the past couple of years, how close are we to to having it completely done? I mean, I guess it's a little bit in the plan.
We're pretty close. I mean, what happens is you do that, and then 10 years from now you start all over again.
Right.
So Steve will tell you this: once you build something, it starts falling apart.
Right.
So slowly, but that's what happens. But we're in very good shape. I think it'll be a while before like I said, the last big thing that this year we're just finishing up the new SCADA system, the controls for everything. That's going to be done. I think by April we'll have that all done. So they're in there doing it now, actually. And startup is probably going to be in April. So and then the tanks. So it's good.
Great.
Yep.
Any more questions?
How's our groundwater doing? Or are we still in a drought situation?
We're close to a drought situation. We're a little low in the lake. I'm hoping that we'll have a lot of rain this winter, and it'll be back up. So that's what usually seems to happen. We were on volunteer. We never really went into mandatory. As soon as we went out with the robocall, it seemed like people listened to it and
Really?
yeah,
Nice.
went way
You
out.
saw a
And we got
response?
some rain, and so we were able to just skirt that from mandatory, because mandatory is always difficult.
Yes.
And, but people seem to be doing what they're supposed to, and hopefully we won't have to go into it too early in the spring. We'll get some water and fill that back up. So.
Good.
All right.
Well, thanks
I'm
again.
afraid- Rain, not snow.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
That's good.
It's raining now.
It is.
Okay, Chris. Okay, let's just get oriented first. And page 7, 16 and 17. Actually, for me it's 16.
16.
Okay. All right. So, Chris, why don't you just explain what you're looking to do this year, and maybe give an update on what you did last year, and anything else you think that's important for us to know on the capital side.
Absolutely, and any questions that pop up, I'm more than happy to answer. So working with Andrew last year, we kind of restructured the way we did the capital, the pay-as-you-go capital within the operating budget and the CIP capital. And that there's traditionally this $50,000 ask for the CIP for computer replacements, et cetera. So traditionally that had been sort of put toward miscellaneous switches and infrastructure, et cetera. And we just determined that really wasn't adequate to cover that category, and that the need in terms of infrastructure was too great, and that really wasn't an adequate amount. And there was some money in the operating budget that was a little more straightforward in terms of workstation replacements, et cetera. And we found that that was a better fit for that $50,000 ask in the CIP, in that that's perfectly adequate to replace those end-user devices, laptops, computers, workstations, et cetera, that are really the lifeblood of taking advantage of all of the major infrastructure pieces we put in. Especially with the reliance on cloud computing and server-based things now, and with security being of a utmost concern for everybody, having updated devices is just critical to really letting people have a good experience and take advantage of that. We've standardized for the most part on doing department head and division heads receiving laptops as opposed to desktops as their primary computer. Again, just we're so mobile now with the Wi-Fi saturation and with Google Docs and being able to come to meetings like this and have access to that. And I think the department head's going to attest that that's made a pretty positive change to the way they work and operate in terms of freeing them. We've standardized on the Lenovo product line for all the workstations and laptops, and we're doing some of that with the school as well, just in terms of getting a rugged, reliable device that's standard across everybody. We are starting to move more into Chrome-type devices where they're appropriate. Unfortunately, a lot of the applications in municipal government are still kind of legacy. So we're not as agile as the school is right now where we can just go to a Chrome platform. But where it makes sense, we're introducing some Chromebooks, some Chrome devices and tablets and things that are a little more inexpensive and a little more flexible. But we're still slowly trying to wean ourselves off of some of the legacy devices. So that's just a pretty simple CIP request, but I'm more than happy to expand or ask any.
Failures, repairs on existing hardware, average age of perhaps your laptop, desktops?
Yeah, knock on wood. I think because we have a fairly aggressive, we usually do a 3 to 5 year cycle depending on the need, use, et cetera. Obviously the laptops tend to be a little more banged on, and you're going to see those get recycled a little more often. I think we do a really good job prioritizing second-tier machines. So we've got a lot of counter machines and other things that aren't on the front line. So before we recycle something, we always look there. We've got a really good relationship with the school. So we always work with them so we can recycle things down so that by the time we're recycling a device, it's gotten all the use we're going to get out of it. So, but in terms of break fix, I think because we have a very agile sort of ticketing inventory sort of monitoring system that looks at that, we're able to make good decisions about what gets replaced quickly. And so I have to say, knock wood, that we don't really have a lot of computers breaking from a hardware standpoint, I think because we're so aggressive at keeping them maintained. So we're not ordering a lot of parts. We're not having to rebuild machines. They're not going out of service. I think we just sort of constantly make sure we're putting good, simple machines in.
So how do you, we try to work with one system,
Mm-hmm.
one government across the entire municipality. How do you help all the department heads understand
Mm-hmm.
the options out there, really how to leverage some of the processes, the tools that you've brought into some departments? Tell us a little bit about how you do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you know, we standardized on Google Apps for government last year, joining the school who uses the Google Apps for school. So from a larger standpoint, it really allows the town and school to standardize and communicate and share things in a way that we've never been able to, and it's really powerful. Internally, I'm a big advocate of institutional knowledge and creating systems that sort of capture what we know and how to do it, and it's not about the person in the position, it's about the position in the organization. And Google is very well suited to that, so one of the things I've done is built a primary staff portal that everyone uses, so we've standardized, except for a few programs, people are using Chrome. They're signing in, we can roll out and we can manage what people are seeing when they log in, information, groups, so that information that we share is being captured. I've made a point, I'd like to increase that this year, of doing video-based training or sessions, so that if we're teaching something, we're teaching it once, capturing it, and then being able to share that through that institutional knowledge for people coming on board. The other buzzword that we've been using with government and the police is the idea of a common operating picture, so that we're capturing things that aren't in silos, we're publishing spreadsheets, we're publishing maps, we're publishing data that's updated in real time that everybody has access to. So from some of the different systems in permitting, or some of the the different complaint forms and things that we're doing, as opposed to individual departments seeing their part, Even if it doesn't 100% pertain to somebody, it's useful for everyone to get a snapshot of what's going on in the organization, and I think we've done a pretty good job at standardizing that and leveraging those tools.
Spending more time on the town website than I have ever spent. Because
I hope in a good way.
I have access to all of these folders from all of these departments. So I was clicking everybody's folders open to,
Yeah,
to see what I could see.
We just made a big push to standardize, and I think I was just speaking with Stan offline ahead of time. I think we're trying to focus a lot on making the back end simple, rugged, and doing as much as visible as possible, which is hard in IT sometimes. But the website is really the pinnacle of what we do, and having that integration with Google. So some small things. So you guys now have your packet available as part of your agenda. The school committee and selectmen do that. The planning board does that. We've migrated to Google Calendars and Google Groups and Drive, and so it's just an integrated part of what people do every day. It's not an extra place that they have to go to get stuff on the website. They just put it there, and it sort of moves upstream and feeds what they have to do. All agendas are now posted on social media. So before there was 5 or 6 selectmen, school committee, et cetera, that went out. Now whenever any agenda gets posted, it's getting blasted out to the email groups. It's getting blasted out to Twitter and Facebook. And we've been significantly increasing those audiences. We've been growing on Twitter by about 1,000 users a year for the past couple of years. Our Facebook presence is strong, and it's interesting to watch. We'll post a planning board meeting, and 300 people on Facebook will see it. So we've got some metrics in terms of the audience that we know that we're reaching.
So it's the same thing that is going. I don't do social media, so are social media seeing the same things as we see on the website?
Mm-hmm.
They can have so that all is going out. I noticed that on the website, while I could see the agenda, everyone's agenda, are we still working on the minutes?
Yes, that's an ongoing process. We just, with this latest push, we made a huge effort to clean up the website and go through and purge. Now that people got a little more comfortable on Google, we made the agenda migration. We standardized all the minutes that were there in our Laserfish document management system, because as great as Google is, it's really not designed to sort of be the end-all be-all vault of documents. So we kind of have that as a failover. And we've also vastly increased the type of documents that are available through the Laserfish document management. So a lot of the old clerk records and property records and things are there. Mm-hmm. We've been doing a lot with GIS and mapping kind of for the first time this last year. So we've got a pretty robust Google-based GIS tool if you haven't used. And we're in the process of working on a property lookup dashboard that will link permitting and documents and GIS and some other things in kind of a cool way. So we're very close to having that released. But right now it integrates quite a bit, the property record cards and Google Street View and some other cool things. The Report It tool that we've been using on the website is really successful, and that's a mapping-based product as well, so the town manager is able actually to see a real-time dashboard of sort of pending things and make sure those are getting resolved. But we can also go back and look at a year and see the areas and what types of issues and do some things. I'm actually going to be making a presentation to the selectmen on Monday going over some of the highlights of this, but we just brought in our dog licensing into a map-based type system so we can actually see all the dogs in town. And, so we're really focusing on...
You don't see the map.
Superimpose the various maps from previous years to find out what differences or changes that have been brought.
In some, depending, but so we've got some pretty powerful tools. We work with Applied Geographics, is probably the premier.
They do conflations?
Yeah.
Superimposing one on top of the other?
In some cases, yeah. We can do some cool things where we can have layers that have transparency so you can see, but we can also do time-lapse type layers so we can actually see changes over time and play.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, so we're not doing a lot of that, but we have the capability to do that.
I have another question related to knowledge capturing that you were talking about. With respect to schools, how much training do you provide to teachers? Are they trained on the computers and how to use it, and what kind of knowledge capturing do you do that? I mean, I should have asked this to the school superintendent, that these loose sheets that kids get for homework and stuff, they really, I really feel very sad to see how these sheets are given to kids, which eventually get lost if you don't preserve. If you could somehow train these teachers to basically, while handing out these homework worksheets or classroom worksheet, if they could basically put it on their site, and for parents to go back and refer to that would be an immensely useful thing. Knowledge capturing, it would remain there. So when kids take their MCAS and other stuff, they really don't have to do anything, but they can just go back and refer to that.
It's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. So Mike Grant, my counterpart, the IT director in the school, we work very closely together on these high-end pieces, and Google especially. I will say, anecdotally, I have never seen a school district embrace the Google platform and classroom as deeply as this one has. So I think there's always room for improvement, but I think you'd be hard-pressed to find somebody. And one of the things, so if you look at other schools, for example, doing like one-to-one laptop initiatives and those types of things, I think we've done a really good job here proliferating the Chromebook devices, which are very inexpensive. And the benefit that has over just typically, to your point, giving people devices or giving things is they're a very robust, rugged infrastructure platform that does do a lot of what you're talking about in terms of students have an account that follows them K through 12. There's things that are built, the classroom structure. Students are writing papers on Google Docs and having them edited and commented on. So I'm sure there's room for improvement. But I know, just working with Mike, because we've worked on the back end challenges of just sheer bandwidth on some of this stuff, is they've increased by like 1,000 Chromebooks a year the number of devices that we're putting in the kids' hands. So there is less paper, and they are taking advantage of that.
Not for individual kids, but what I meant was that the teacher could just something that goes out to all kids for homework or classwork. If she has it on her page, which parents could basically go and access, something like that.
Yes, this is actually done. I have some children who, well, anyway, they're sort of like my grandchildren, and
This was news.
okay. Okay, guys. Anyway, they were going to school out in Northampton. They were going to the Williston Northampton School. There they have what you're talking about. All the homework you can do. If you're a kid, you can do your homework on paper if you want. You can do your homework on your Chromebook. Your teacher can see your homework done on your Chromebook. And they'll work with you like either way. Now I know that's really out there.
We're doing that.
We are doing
Okay.
That's what Power School is. So I think it may be that there are some, and that's really more to your point. I think this is with Dr. Price, but certainly large hunks of it are done like that. I can tell you that for years. It's unbelievable. So it may be a function of a teacher or a class or a classroom, but in general, it's staggering how it has shifted in the past 3 years. And really what Chris is talking about here is, you know, there's almost a vision. You know, today we wake up and we plug into the news, to Facebook, but, you know, ideally you're talking about plugging into the town of North Andover in the morning, which is, I want to link into North Andover and see what's going on in my community. And whether you have kids, whether you want to go for a hike, whether or not you want, whatever that is, there's North Andover there electronically, and you're setting really the opportunity to link in and connect with North Andover as a community every morning. And so, to your point, drawing us there. And that's what's really exciting to me, is just seeing how quickly this is moving and what the possibilities are. And so whatever we can do to help you move that along, because at some point, that's what people are going to expect. When I come into town, I'm plug in and I know.
Well, and one of the advantages, I think, of using, leveraging cloud resources and this, you know, what they used to call software as a service, but buying into this bigger thing is, I think, you know, one of the things that's hard to explain to people initially is that you don't necessarily save money by moving to the cloud for things. You change capital costs, operating costs, but you buy so much more. So there's a sunk cost in terms of what you have to spend on technology. So for example, with our Google Apps, we pay $100 per user per year for unlimited storage and full access to their suite. So I could go spend $100 on IT and I'd get exactly $100 worth of stuff. It's not going to buy me very much. But for that $100, we're buying into $1 billion infrastructure with resources. But that's most important is it's evolving, it's changing, it's growing. So as new features come along and their architecture is pretty good, it becomes available. So an anecdote, Andrew tasked me with building a visual budget so that we could start looking at the way you do the budget a little bit. So we actually, there's a feature built into Google Sheets that has automatic insights based on tabular data that will automatically build relational graphs and charts depending on how you interact with that. Ooh. So we can present data that now is graphical without doing anything. It takes some of that challenge that you might have to go to somebody who knows how to do charts or things like that to get some of that analysis done. It just does it.
Exactly.
So
So not unlike the reporter tool, what we're trying to be is more outward facing, right? So the short answer to Chris's question about was something about how are we getting there. Chris is dragging us along. So he races ahead of us, and we slowly catch up, and he reminds us that we're behind. And he races ahead, and we slowly catch up. And so we'll never catch up to Chris, but that's the goal, right? Our goal is to always be chasing Chris down the road, and it's working at varying degrees, quite frankly, in candor, but all in positive direction, right? So the interactive agenda, by the way, is a huge hit, not only with our group. I use it actually at the meeting, so instead of looking at, we moved to electronic packages, which didn't exist 5 years ago, but even that was cumbersome. Now I simply go on the town's website, look up the meeting, I get the interactive agenda, and I use our own website as my access point to agenda data packages, by clicking on different links, put them on the TV when necessary on the screen. But Chris is racing ahead. He's been always introduced interesting, exciting things, but not unlike Report It, which is a Chris invention that allows us to graphically track where we're doing things around town. Allows me to sit at my desk and see in graphical representation fashion where we're succeeding and failing, where every pothole has been replaced. I can see that from my desktop today in the last 12 months, where the potholes, where we responded. The idea of this budget document is less for you folks that are deep into it than the resident that says, if I pay $5,000, where's my money being spent? And so I came back from something or another, and I said, Chris, can we do this? And Chris says what he always says, we can do anything. So Chris is working on that product, and the idea is in a simple way to be able to say to our residents, if I spend this much, what am I getting in return? How much police, how much school, how much fire? How does that distribute across the board of my taxes? So we can communicate with our residents in an effective way.
So you're like Batman.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take that.
Yeah, tissue paper.
Yeah.
I have a question. The Chromebooks, they're so incredibly cheap because Google's embracing sort of the razor blade model. They kind of give you the hardware 'cause you're buying into this infrastructure that you pay per person per year. So they get the recurring revenue stream as opposed, and the Google Chromebooks, or it's a Google product, right? The Chromebook?
It's a Google product.
Yeah. So those
Well,
are
the
just
hardware
like
could be various hardware vendors, but they
Okay.
run the Google operating
and do they have
system.
like an operating system like one of these where
It's
they're
Chrome.
constantly,
Chrome.
so it's Chrome, and they just update it, you know, every so often. How long does one of those Chrome devices last? Are they pretty good? Are they pretty robust? In terms of like, I know with these things, after a couple years, they push out enough updates and your phone starts wigging out. You need to get a new one because it can't handle the updates, you know. But most of the hard stuff is sitting on the cloud, right? I mean, this is just a thin client, the Chromebook.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're fairly early into dipping our toe into that hardware, so we really haven't, I think, got a good handle on what they last for our environment.
Yeah.
But it's really like anything else. It's how long the hardware can continue to operate, and then how long the specs, the processor, and the memory and whatever can accommodate. But I think that you're generally going to see 3+ years unless you're doing something extraordinary on these things,
Right.
and they're so inexpensive
Right.
and secure and disposable because they're not storing anything. So
Yeah. They're the razor blade model.
you lose it,
Yeah.
you lock it out, and you log into another one, you're back in business. And I think we're trying to be creative about how we use them, because I think what people find is they're great for doing about 70 to 80% of what you need to do. And if you're doing anything that's a little involved, or you're editing photos, or you're moving things around, I think, personally, I find there's just not quite enough real estate there to do 100% of what I need. But it's a great device if I want to grab and go and be able to do 80% of what I need. And so we're trying to, if you go to Town Hall now, there's a permitting sort of general kiosk outside of the permitting area that's a Chrome base. That's a device that you log into, you access the town's website, you can pull a permit, you can pay a bill. And all you do is log into the thing, so there's nothing to roll out. So in the school, they're attractive because there's nothing to image, nothing to do. You manage everything through the user interface.
Right.
You sign in and they get the entire app suite. But
When
Wow.
you say inexpensive, how much is inexpensive?
so it depends, like everything. So you can get them for under $200. You can get them all the way up to $400 or $500, depending on, what you want. But unlike, say, a laptop, $450 will buy you the best Chromebook that you can get versus over $1,000. And once you start counting the configuration time, there's no software to install, there's nothing to support, there's no image to make. You simply literally log into the thing and you're off and running. So, but
It's great. No, I've reported is fantastic. I mean, I do everything from dead animals to potholes to.
yeah, and we
Trash.
recommend, because the town has a mobile app, and there's not a lot there, but it'll give you a directory of the departments, and you actually give you a map and how far you are, and there's the news. But really, the focus of the app is there's a report it piece right on it, so it really makes it quick to launch the app, hit the first button, which is report it. And when you're using the app, there's actually a GPS-based grab on it. So when you're at the dead animal, you simply say, grab my location. I mean, just to show you how sophisticated it is. So you can have the app. The first thing you're going to see is report it. So if you're looking at the dead animal, you say dead animal, you type in your little thing, you say, I'm going to grab my current location. It actually puts a pinpoint on the map. You can take a picture of the animal and attach it to your report. If you put your email address in,
Yeah.
you're going to basically, anytime the status of that report changes, you're going to get a summary email. The minute you hit submit, the appropriate department gets an email with a link to your record. It puts a pinpoint on a map. It adds to the workflow on our dashboard that Andrew and the appropriate people can see. And when it gets resolved, you'll actually get a survey link back referencing how the town did. And so we get those back and analyze those. So. Mm-hmm.
So you're able then to evaluate that particular service.
Yeah, and that just goes back to a Google form survey. So we've got some graphs, and it links back to the reported number on your ticket. So we've got some correlation between the events.
So that one,
Quantify, so it's, once again, a way to quantify the value of the service.
It's just North Andover, if you do a search for the North Andover app.
All of you should have the town of North Andover app.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The other,
Looking for dead animals.
And I know there's identified reported as the primary driver of that, but
Yeah.
I was away from my office trying to catch the school committee meeting last week. And the easiest way to get to North Andover CAM for me from my smartphone was open the app. One of the options was to see there's a link into North Andover CAM, and in 2 clicks, I was watching the school committee meeting from my smartphone, live on the CAM. So the app is pretty powerful, a lot of things there. What you don't see from here on the reported side is we have on our own intranet, well, I call it intranet, but a lot of the data is geographical data that I can pull up a map and I can see everything from streetlight repairs to the dead animal complaints to traffic-related concerns, all geographically posted. Turn buttons off, turn buttons on, understand where we're responding. We're doing similar things with crime data and overdose data and the like. And so it gives us the opportunity to see graphically inside the organization where we're responding well, and where we need to make improvements.
Well, in that vein too, because it's all really about mapping now. So we're going to be reinventing the capital system next year, because we've done a good job building facilities databases and other things. Joanne at the DPW has built probably 1,000 forms on her own, elevator systems, HVAC systems, facilities. But we can actually take the capital request system and link it to those same facilities, so you can start running location-based queries if you want to look at a building, what facilities are invested there, et cetera. You can start lighting up a map and some other things. So it's really all about getting rid of silos and linking data, especially spatially.
So are you going to be putting anything on these glasses?
Unfortunately, the
I mean,
Google
all these
Glass
people
project
in
died,
town
so.
are gonna- Well, I know, but you
Because people
know,
couldn't stop going into restaurants and recording
Yeah, yeah,
people with the Google Glass.
Well, the
so-
other thing that you're doing here, actually is, was sort of highlighted today in the Globe on an article about transparency in a corporation. One of the things that we're talking about was having that dashboard, so the internal is, that the employees really saw how the whole organization was operating. They could see the strengths, they could see the opportunities. And you're really talking about the same thing as a municipality, which is a corporation, really. And and it was a fascinating article because it was saying the more people understood about how the whole system worked, how the pieces worked, where they stood, it gave them a sense and a connectivity that you had, moving them, again, out of, as your term, the silos. Tremendous.
Well, and to Andrew's point and your point question about how we keep people caught up, I think this is a strength of North Andover in that more than a lot of towns I've seen, it's a very process system-driven organization, which I think works well. And I think we employ sort of that good to great mentality of moving forward, but only so much as the entire organization. So it's IT's job to be out in front, but not to be so far out in front that people aren't taking advantage of it. And so similar to the way we deal with staff and do training and sort of push things out, the purpose of meeting with the selectmen on Monday is to start really doing, I think, what we're going to call like a did you know, like life hack type campaign. We're working with Brian and NCAM. Instead of doing 30-minute segments about the website or things that no one's going to watch because the world's too fast, we're going to have a did you know North Andover has a mobile app. That's the message this month. Get the mobile app. Here's what it can do. Did you know, for example, because there was some confusion with the weird holiday schedule about the trash pickup, that there's now, if you wouldn't mind, go to the homepage of the website. So this is a little sneak peek, and the thing is we've built scroll down to the trash and recycling.
Oh yeah.
This was a change since that.
So if you see the calendar,
Oh yeah.
click on the calendar. Plug your street into the drop-down list, or A Street,
Yeah.
if you,
Hey, I do
Pick a
the
street
town
at
meeting every
random.
year, right? So.
And you can just type a letter too if you, but
Yeah. Sorry. I don't work for a software company or anything.
It's not a copy, just pick a street.
just pick a
There you
street.
go. Pick a street.
So now is your trash day's Monday, but see it where it says click here to subscribe in Google Calendar?
Oh, no.
Click that. Now if you hit the little add Google Calendar in the lower right,
Oh, yeah.
you'll never forget your trash day again.
Oh, nice.
So is that current for this week?
Yes.
Will it also go out to iCalendar?
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you go back to the web page,
Very cool.
if you right click,
It's a link to my,
Oh, yeah.
you can just paste the iCal.
Yeah.
it's a link to my Alexa. Just,
Can she read your calendar? Then yes.
No, that's great.
Yeah, but will it link to my 16-year-old before he goes to school to do it? That's the
Well,
question.
it sends a push notification to tell him to take out the trash.
That would,
To my 16-year-old telling him to
Yeah.
But this is our focus,
Yeah,
is
that's
all
great.
of these little digestible things that
yes,
are meaningful to people.
This is
connecting.
what happens when the town manager gets a lot of weekend calls about trash.
That's great.
Right.
That's
Great.
awesome. Awesome.
Okay.
thank you.
All right.
Thank
Well, I
you.
think we've thoroughly gone beyond the capital
fun.
commitment for Chromebooks, and very interesting and important update. Anything else on the capital commitment that we're talking about? I think it's great, and as always, we thank you for coming, and we always enjoy having you. Thanks, Chris.
That's great.
All right, next, facilities.
Just to introduce myself to new member, Steve Foster, Facilities Director. I see some new faces here, so welcome.
Yes, yeah, we have Divya.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Sasha Weiner.
Hi, Sasha. Guys. Chris, on board. Okay. Facilities, fiscal year 18, budget, requesting 225, same as last year. Combination of things here. You're looking at some defined projects within this, HVAC mechanical related mostly. And also, it speaks to what are some annual capital items that appear during the year that you got to have money in the bank to address. Typically, these projects and improvements come out of what is my walkthrough on facilities, which is an annual thing. Develop a work plan for each building, and these capital expenditures address those items I show in the plan. Similar to prior years.
Sorry, page 55.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
So page 55 is the start of the plan. So 55 to 57. Okay.
Okay. So again, projects similar to prior years, weighted heavily into building envelope improvements, mechanical repairs. That's where you find most of your expenditures. And I do have a list of some projects I can hand out. You can get a kind of a sense of what kind of things we do with the funds that are provided to us. And again, just looking at the dollar side of things, again, $675,000 provided over 2014 through 2017 fiscal years. And we'll be having a big push on improvements this year with some mechanical projects at one of the schools and also a library roof project, which are both coming spring and summer of this year. So we'll be down to a $90,000 budget come summertime and go from there. So I want to pass this around, and I have several copies. If you look at the second and fourth pages on this, you'll see what are some of the capital items that I've addressed within my budget over the past 5 years. Again, the first 2 pages of it are school-related items, capital. Mine are on the back 2 pages. And as you reviewed this list, if you have any questions on it, feel free to speak up. I can hopefully answer them for you.
Steve, at the middle school,
Hmm?
talking about the building envelope, and one of the snippets of discussion I caught at a recent school committee meeting is really taking a look at that whole facility, kind of doing a full evaluation on that. Is this kind of for a particular immediate need, or is this kind of a larger look?
Chris, this primarily addresses what is the oldest portion of the building dating back to 1950, and I found some areas of the brick veneer on that structure that needed a little bit more in-depth look.
Okay.
And so I've hired on an engineer to take that in-depth look
Yeah.
and do the, let's say, 10,000-foot study, if you
Mhm.
will, and get back to me with what he saw so that he can address the concerns I had when I do my yearly walk-arounds the building. So think of what is the, would be the carrier wing, which is the oldest portion of the building,
Right.
the auditorium area, and part of the admin as well. That's the oldest part. And the study's limited to that area.
Okay, all right. Let's take care of more kind of immediate what we've got to deal with.
Yeah.
Or near immediate.
More identified,
Okay.
scope is limited here.
Okay, gotcha.
These are maintenance, not comprehensive building.
Okay, yeah.
Steve?
I know you've got your list here, the 2016-17 school department projects, and they're categorized as capital completed. I assume that this is a mixture of maintenance and capital projects and then TBDs. So Is that a true statement?
Yeah, this list came from Jim Mealy, and some of them are more capital-related, others are maintenance, I call it more budget-related.
Who does the triage on some of these things, such as install battery power emergency lighting system at Atkinson?
Right. That would probably come here, and what we do is look at it, and again, case in point, emergency lighting system currently run off a generator, which is dated to the mid-60s. Well, that generator is past its service life. So the game plan is have a plan in place, which we do, and if that were a generator to fail, then we could implement what is this new emergency lighting system. So we look at it on that basis, and it's easily implemented. We did similar at Franklin School when that generator failed, implemented a more battery-powered, if you will, emergency lighting system in lieu of replacing the generator.
So to this form, the first two pages that are on top, there's typically 3 funding sources for building-related costs or maintenance. There's the 225 that you see in the capital line item that generally is managed by Steve in terms of actual spending categories. There's approximately $240,000 to $242,000 on an annual basis. That's in the school operating budget. That's been the historic number carried by them, even pre-facilities, right around that number. And then there's an operating capital maintenance line item within the facilities operating budget. Those are the 3 primary areas where larger scale maintenance takes place. So in the first 2 pages, which is school related, capital refers to actually capital funding from the CIP. The other completed work that doesn't have a capital reference to it was probably out of, in most cases, out of the school operating $242,000. In many of the cases, Steve will tell you he was involved in the discussion, because he's involved in most maintenance discussions. But the charged account probably was school. And the TBDs of those things not yet decided as to where the funding will come from. So Steve will meet with, depending on the nature of the project, in this case Jim. And if it's a larger scale items like the Franklin, the work that needs to be done, I think there's a couple of bigger projects at the schools, one of which is in excess of $150,000. Those clearly would come out of the capital that's in Steve's this request versus the $242,000 because it occupied the whole lot.
So what constitutes a capital project in your budget, Steve? I mean, 225, you could eat through that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
What constitutes it as, what constitutes a capital project for this?
Well, something that's got a long lifespan, number one. Your dollar value is going to be, up in the $10,000, $20,000 range, usually. Those are things that put me in a capital mindset that it's not an annual maintenance item. This is something that's going to last you a while. So that's how I define it.
So this sort of deviates a little bit for some of the philosophy that Andrew has put in place, but I like the whole blend of things, by the way, don't get me wrong, where we go out and buy a $25,000, $40,000 car or vehicle, it'll come out of the operating budget. Whereas if we buy $20,000, well, I'm not sure if you can get a generator for a high school or for middle school for $20,000, but that was what my point was. Is like how much is it's just a use of money.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point. I think one of the differences, not unlike the building, is the line items, for instance, on how we maintain technology. If you look at it not collectively but as an individual item, then it doesn't technically qualify within the sort of capital definition we provide, which is 3 years and $25,000. So when we buy an $8,000 piece of hardware and technology individually, it doesn't comply with the traditional capital standard.
Right.
But collectively, we allocate dollars across both operating and capital to make sure we're not putting too much on pay-as-you-go or too much on capital. So by having these collectors, information technology school in town, facility school in town, it allows a little more latitude to make decisions on things that don't fit into the traditional bucket. In Steve's case, I would slightly disagree as it relates to the ones we kick back and tell them to put to a different line item. If it's 7, 8, 9,000 or 5,000 or 2,000, we're pushing them to the operating capital line item within the budget. And where it leans, as Steve said, to the higher amounts, we're kicking them into the operating capital. The other factor in the difference is operating dollars go away at the end of the fiscal years, capital dollars don't. So it's a little bit strategic when we get to that point of making sure we set aside dollars. The library dollars have been set aside for a year plus. That investment's $150,000. That carries from year to year. So there's a little bit of strategy about which dollars you spend first, because of the capital dollars, it allows it to carry to the next year. And sometimes we need to combine 2 years' worth of funding to get what we need, which you can't do with the operating program.
Correct.
No, that's a good point. No, because that makes more sense, and I think that gives some context, because I think, in the interest of, full transparency, we're allocating, $225,000 a year towards capital costs that may fall over a couple different years. And so, I think it's important, it's great that we can see, where these dollars have gone over the years, and we can kind of see how they go. I think it's just important to note that and keep an eye on it, that, it does spread across multiple years, and it might not be as easy as like a building. You look at FY18, we built this building, we were here, we did that, we're done. But some of the facilities maintenance, it also helps to smooth it out a little bit, so that it's not quite as spiky if we get a library roof and then just the normal course of business. And then the next year we might be a little bit lower. So I think that makes sense. That makes sense to me, I should say. Any other questions on the? So how's the sort of EMS?
Energy
stuff coming
management
along?
system is working super. It allows us to leverage a guy like Greg Roberts, who is essentially the operator of the mechanical system, to sit in one chair and look at all the buildings on one screen. And it really connects us good, because he can look at that system and do a lot of problem solving right there to see what an issue might be in a building, instead of getting in his car and having to travel there. And it saves a lot of time. Like I say, it leverages him across all the buildings in town by just one system. The other thing it does, it really keeps an eye on the energy. You can see right away if there's any temperature differentials that you're going astray from the energy program, or any schedules that are getting long. So it's a good tool to manage those things, and it's kept our ESCO program intact. It allows us to see that 17% energy savings we saw, and it's really a good tool to ensuring the energy savings going forward. So I can't wait to get new buildings attached to it and monitor those as well. It's a great investment, paid back enormously.
As a whole program, if you're going to say like 100% every building's connected, where are we now? And
Well, there's other new buildings that have to be connected. I got to get the fire station on board, for instance. Okay, that's one of them. And going forward, get the new DPW building on board.
right.
Those are just two buildings that pop up right away. And there's also other, again, along with the mechanical improvements we're making, we're going to get DDC equipment that we can control a lot better than the current pneumatic system. So
Right.
there's a quantum leap in terms of controls of your equipment. And again, it allows us to manage that energy even better.
So this is the system, I didn't know we could add buildings to this system.
You can,
We can.
sure, yeah.
Well, that's something. I thought it was specific to those buildings that were in the project to begin with, but
No.
it's not.
No, we've expanded. This building was, case in point, we added this one onto the system. And again, we can look at it, one screen, and see everything in town. It's great.
A little cold in SD.
Yeah, right. I think that's a meeting supposed to come to an end.
We've gone beyond our allotted time.
Would you like us to turn up the heat?
Doesn't give me access to that.
Okay. Well, great, and we, as always, appreciate the update, and
Well,
seen a lot of progress, and
Yeah.
look forward to more progress.
Well, thank you for
FY18.
supporting us with your finances. Appreciate it, and we make good use of it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then next year it'll be second, because we'll make the new DPW guy will go last. So.
Great.
You must have beat Bruce at racquetball or something, because
He's had enough.
Not Bruce. I meant Ray, because Ray set the order in the agenda.
There you go. Okay, nice.
Okay, next, we don't have any minutes. We have public comment. So,
Can I make a?
yes, you can make a public comment.
As long as Mr. Mailer's not here.
Stan Lambert, 43 Stonecleve Road, also a member of the North Andover School Committee. You knew that. I just wanted to say a couple of things. First was, I want to just compliment Mr. Mailer's staff, Mr. Thibodeau, Mr. Foster, and especially Mr. McClure, who's just they've all done outstanding jobs. But in particular, the IT function in our town now, both on the school side and on the municipal side, is just going great. I mean, this is getting to be pretty much cutting edge now. We're getting as close as we can possibly get to really having excellent information technology support across the board. Some of the questions, back to some of the comments you made, it was a no-brainer on the school side once we started to get into it to move into the Google world, because on the school side, it's free. All of that software doesn't even cost us $100 a person. It's free. So it was a no-brainer for us to take them up on the free offer. Now, we do pay for some additional support, but generally speaking, that's a free service to public education.
Does the municipal side have to be on board for the schools to get the
It does not.
They'll do it for
Nope.
any school?
We were there first,
Huh.
and it was free in the very beginning. Yeah. They could call it public education and maybe try to get a deal for themselves, but I wouldn't try that personally. The second comment I wanted to make is we've already been through 2 or 3 generations of Chromebooks, and we've continued to look for somewhat more robust devices. I think we've got a good set now. Mike Grant, who was our information technology person on our side, has really worked to do that. But we've had very good success with those devices, with the people, with students, with everybody. We've lost almost no devices, to failures or anything else. So it's been a really good experience for us. And the trade-off for us has been the comparison of we were thinking about using MacBooks, right? So MacBooks are $1,200 or $1,300 a pop at the low end, and for that you can get 4 or 5 Chromebooks. So it wasn't hard to make that decision and get that going. And as Mr. McClure pointed out, you don't have to configure the device. It's like a toaster. You plug it in and it works, right? It's all there. So it's been great for everybody, and it really has made the technology environment on the school side a whole new thing. The one thing I would have to say, though, is we owe a lot to the town and town manager and the voters, the taxpayers, for providing us with the infrastructure we needed to make that work. So Chromebooks and all of that are only as good as the infrastructure, and we've really done well with that. We have probably the most robust internet access of any town around. So that's been a real boon for us, because that's something we really need.
Before you move on to that, one thing back on the schools that kind of gets missed in this discussion, because we talk about all these wonderful applications, but there's also, there are also folks in our community that don't have any access to technology except through the schools.
Right.
And so the Chromebooks and the access to using them allows those children that are in households that can't have that or can't afford that. And that's the other thing that it does, is it really opens up those children, that piece of education. They could have been locked out.
Correct.
If you can't afford a laptop, sorry, that's not the case in our community at all. And that's not to be underestimated in terms of value.
If I may ask, how does that work? So are kids required to?
Nope. All the devices that we're currently using are all school-based and stay in school. So unfortunately, we haven't gotten to the point where we'll let students take those devices home, but certainly at school, they all have access to a device, every one of our students at every level. We also have just started a program where we will have Chromebooks at the public library, right? They're being put in place for a specific activity. It's the Girls Who Code activity. So we put a cart there with 20 Chromebooks. But they'll be able to be used by anyone, including students, whenever the library is open, other times when they're not being used for this activity. So now there will be at least 20 Chromebooks available for students who may not have the access or device at home. At least the library has, different hours than the school. So they can go to the library now and use a Chromebook in the evening or on a weekend when they weren't otherwise able to do that. So a lot of new innovative ideas like that. We're trying to really kind of push all that forward. And that's been, strongly supported by the public library. Stevens Memorial Library has been, the director there has been very supportive of all this. So these are some of the really good initiatives. And that, again, relies on infrastructure, right? Great infrastructure in the library now, robust Wi-Fi, good internet access, all of that, which allows us to be able to do that sort of stuff. So, things are really going well. And what you've heard tonight are the kind of the support systems that really make it possible for the school department, as an example, to make the progress it's been making, both in terms of facilities with Mr. Foster, the joint IT, now the collaborative IT with Mr. McClure. All of that's just been going great. So and the strong support by DPW for a lot of the things that we do, plowing, mowing, all the stuff that they provide for the schools too. So it's been a real good collaboration with all the town departments, and those are just a few. You'll hear more, and you can hear more about the great stories of how the schools are supported by all the municipal departments. So I just wanted to throw that out, and some kudos there for some of the stuff going on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that's our agenda from a duties thing. The one thing I want to talk about a little bit was the schedule, which we've worked on a little bit. This is a draft, and I think I sent it around. So what I wanted to do is just kind of outline what we've got scheduled. Again, we can change this as things come up and so forth. And but in general, this is what the timing kind of looks like. Next week we'll finish up the CIP. We could either go the first week in February or the second week in February, but we want to get it done relatively quickly. I put it down for the 7th. Which would give us a week off in between, but it's up to the committee.
You got it a couple places?
Which one?
You got
On Valentine's Day.
7th and 14th.
Yeah, we'll take that one out. Second one. Does the 7th make more sense?
Yeah, we'll
Okay.
keep rolling.
All right. And then the operating budget will be issued to the selectmen on the 13th. On the 14th, what they've traditionally done, which is very helpful for our purposes, is for us to both be working on the budget at the same time and hearing things about the budget at the same time, instead of kind of it's forwarded to us so we can be working on it at the same time. So that's very helpful. We talked about February 22nd. Andrew and I is the date that he would come in and do his presentation, and we could get community services through. And then I put the other departments in through March.
You really had the Community Preservation Committee hearing on the 9th?
We doing that again?
Oh, public hearing. That's not mine, that's theirs.
Oh.
So everything in red is ours,
Got it.
just the red, sorry. So that's why I actually put it up, because the red is the stuff that we're gonna do, and the black, it helps to see the context of what else is going on in the process. So the red is ours, and that's, the CPC's public hearing. I'll have to, it'll probably go the way it usually goes, is some point in April, we'll talk to the CPC about their proposals, but I don't have it scheduled yet. But that was kind of the general way. I mean,
February 22nd is the school vacation week. I'm just throwing that out there.
right,
Access to committee, I don't know how many people have kids in school and are planning vacations.
yeah.
I'm not in February, but I just thought I'd throw it out there because it falls
Yeah.
in a bad week where we might have trouble
I
getting a
know.
quorum.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'll be around that part of the week or the other part of the week, but I can participate remotely if I need to. Oh, I can blow it up too.
No, it's not bad. I'm not sure it's gonna
Can we put some glasses in the budget for
Yeah.
Andrew?
help. Readers in business.
There you go.
Bigger screen.
I can't think of it if it helps. If you notice the 22nd, I needed the courtesy of a Wednesday. for-
Right.
It's possible I could look if it's better for the committee to try to do that 1 week earlier on the 15th. So give you the budget and make that presentation on the 15th. If you end up having we can leave it the 22nd, but if it ends up being that's a challenging week.
Okay.
In terms of school vacation, I haven't looked at my schedule, but I'm pretty sure I could do it the week you get the budget book.
Mhm.
You won't have time to look at it, but.
Yeah, that's the
Right.
problem. We wouldn't have time to look at
If it
it.
helps you, pretty sure I can do February 15th.
Okay.
Make up your-
Yeah.
just- you just have to-
Yeah, I just wanted to throw it out there just in
Yeah,
case
no, I
we had
think we can-
anyone. But it sounds like most of us will be around.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so then, in general, we're just kind of following along with what we've done before. We could certainly have a couple departments double up if we wanted to. I know we've always wanted to move the school. I tried to move the school early, based on feedback from last year.
Yeah.
But if there are any thoughts?
That's good.
I think the ones we could perhaps move back, maybe we could do, because support services, we kind of asked a lot of questions that bled into the operating budget tonight. So that might be a good one to combine. And then we have an extra week.
Well, it gives us, I think the other advantage of that is it gives us more time to kind of hone the last thing we do, which is that letter.
Right,
And so anytime we can pick up another week
right,
to hone that, I don't think that's a loss.
right. And then I have April 3rd as we'll do the same dual meeting that we usually do. We'll open the public hearing.
Yeah.
We'll hear any input that people have, and then we'll close the public meeting, and then we'll open our meeting, and we can vote on the operating budget. So that's when we'll actually go through at that time. And we should have the warrant articles the week before, so we can actually go right through the warrant and say, so we're doing two things at once. We're saying we approve the budget, we approve we approve or recommend favorable action on the budget amount, or don't, or approve a different amount, whatever we decide to do. But we could do that all on April 3rd with the warrant, and then we're sort of wrapped up. And then we just, draft the warrant letter, which we can set in motion in March. And what we've traditionally done, for those of you who haven't been on the committee, is we have the warrant letter broken out into different sections, like capital, different departments. We usually have a section on the schools, challenges. So we usually it's like a big jigsaw. So reserves. So we usually kind of parcel it out a bit to each group, and then we struggle with the format of the document and so forth. And we make comments, and we read through it and actually do like a live edit towards the end in April. That's the last thing we do, is kind of line edit it together. So everyone does a little piece, and then we discuss it and put it together, and then it gets printed in the warrant.
The bonus is this time, though, we've done it twice before, so you get a little,
We can follow the format.
there's a little bit of format there.
There's a
so that-
format.
yeah.
I was in Google Docs, so you can all edit.
Yeah,
There we go.
That's we probably need a
Thanks.
training in March.
That could be a mess.
Yeah.
By chance, does anyone know when town election is?
Spring vacation.
28th.
Yeah.
So
28th.
the 21st is right in the middle
May,
of,
March.
March 28th.
Yeah, that's not one of our meetings, that's.
no, but we have to do,
Oh,
our letter
yeah,
has to
so
be
we-
done.
Oh, okay,
I don't know how,
Probably should.
if we have the same, I know I won't be here.
Yeah.
Between 11 and 21st.
Oh, yeah.
It's
So we were
scheduled
just
for March
saying,
28th.
the 28th is the town election, so we can't have a meeting that day because Angela will be working. So we'll move support services back.
Mr. Jim, can I suggest you move that with Public Works on the 20th
Yeah.
of February?
Yep.
I think you're right that generally, based on last year's experience, I think you cover a lot of their stuff in capital, and at least the preliminary budget I've seen is it's either unchanged or close to unchanged from last year for support services.
Yep.
And Bruce may make a post-retirement return visit for the public.
Gary over here.
Gary over here.
Special guest appearance.
Yeah.
Again, I don't expect a lot of changes in either one of those categories, so
Right.
All right.
public safety with 2 new chiefs, so that's gonna take a little while.
Right. Okay.
So we're gonna move that to the 22nd or the 28th?
28th. So I'll send this out.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about the, to consolidate support services? I mean, we just did that, already, just listening how it goes.
mm,
Because it always seems like, you know, we take our sweet time to go through these meetings, and they're not really very aggressive from a timing perspective, and then we scramble at the end.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
That's why I'm
everything
trying
is dense, and then suddenly we
Right.
have 2 meetings that go until 10 and 11 o'clock.
Yeah, no, I mean,
Okay.
the tough thing is the school department's a big meeting. Public safety, we got 2 new chiefs. In community development, we're talking to a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like we have a lot of people coming in because we have, so I think really what it is we just have to be more aggressive working on the letter internally
Yeah.
so that we, maybe we make the assignments for the letter in at the beginning of March.
Yeah.
And then we're working on it through March. And then, the last session is really sort of drafting.
Well, maybe
That's
target.
a bugger of a meeting, that drafting meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, it took us 2 times last time, maybe 2 times and more.
Right.
And Susan's not here.
And Susan's not here.
What,
Right.
how did you, just out of curiosity, how did you structure that meeting? So how does it?
So what we do it kind of like homework. Like we say, here's the section that you have, here's last year's letter, write your piece and put it in this doc. And then everyone writes their section. And then we have we might start out with the tough part is kind of the simultaneous editing that goes on. And then we read it section by section. So let's say in March we said everyone get it done by April 1st. And we'd spend 2 meetings kind of reading through it and saying, do we agree with it? A lot of times it's a matter of degree. So that's really when a lot of the judgment calls come in, where we say like, somebody might have a particularly strong view on one, and we just try to work through and say, is there consensus to make this statement?
Right.
Or is this a statement that we need to change or soften or?
Right.
So that's really where the time is, and then there's a little bit of,
Crafting.
a little bit of draft word choice type stuff. But, I think, we've gotten a little bit better at it. I think we can probably provide some more guidance about like, what person to write in and not using the passive tense and things like that, so.
You
Yeah,
need
and-
2 more days, does April 13th help you, Ryan? So the backstop date for me is April 21st, which means that has to be 2, coming warrant has to be distributed, and then I have printing days before then.
Right.
But if 13th helps,
April 13th?
yeah, it just gives you a couple more days.
Mhm.
Maybe
Yeah,
we
it's
could-
still right in the middle of that.
No, it's before.
No,
Oh, it's
that's
before. You're right.
All right, so why don't we put in April 13th as and we've done this before, we put in an extra meeting, if we need it, we need it, if we don't, we don't.
Right, that's more of a no later date than a date of, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you need that date, then
Okay.
we can work with that.
Okay.
Deadline.
Let's just get it on the books, I think.
Drop dead.
Yeah.
Date. Gotcha.
Your suggestion about teaching us Google Docs is a good one, by the way.
Yeah, no, I think we definitely should.
My only issue with Google Docs is that you can't save versions, right? So if you're continually changing it, I'm a version girl, where I need like, I want version 1, version 2, version 3,
Yeah.
and I want to be able to refer back to it. That's my only issue with it. I've used both, I've done both,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah,
good.
you grew up with track changes in Word.
Love,
Yeah.
love a red
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
I can't stand Google Docs, it just drives me
I
nuts.
know.
Yeah.
For other things, it's excellent, but to
Yeah.
to get my hands around a,
Right, when you have a lot of
Right.
different opinions going,
yeah,
and it's.
I gotta figure out where
Yeah.
I'm at.
I had a spreadsheet completely done that somebody just like overwrote, and it was gone. And I hadn't kept a copy because they were like, oh, we need the master to be in the, I was like, oh, I hate this, I hate Google Drive.
Yeah. No, you're right. I think it's
It's all gone.
Google Drive, you're nuts.
it's tough, but it's also tough when, well, I guess unless you're really good at Word, and when you have like 4, where Google Docs is helpful. If you had 6 people touching it, you can see they're all touching the same document.
Right.
Whereas if
Right.
you each work
And
on
there
your
is
own
a-
Microsoft Word document,
And you
then
can
it
see
gets
that.
Right.
really
You
messy.
can see who
Well,
touched it
wouldn't
last.
wouldn't it
but
make
it's
sense to
still
have one person as the
quadratic.
keeper?
Yeah.
She's not on the board anymore. That's what Susan was unbelievable at.
She was a good editor. Yeah, it's not a, I mean,
Let's see.
that's
how it
kind of
goes.
what I would do, is I would take everybody's thing and put it into one document.
Yeah.
And then from there, I guess, the tricky part was that we had 3 or 4 different versions of that's where the meeting comes in, because you might have
Got it.
had
Right.
like it usually comes down to like 5 or 6 points in the document that you're talking about a matter of degree. How strongly do we want to say this or that? Or do we do we want to go that far or not?
Right.
Or,
And that's a
and that
meeting
is something that you
conversation.
really just have to
Yeah.
handle face to face, because you can't, I think the best thing is when you're working on the same document and 3 or 4 people come in with suggestions for the same section, and then you kind of read them all out, and
Yeah, yeah.
and there's a lot of, in some cases, we haven't televised that meeting because there's a lot of, just because it's not good television, we're typing away in the document. So,
This is very
It's like
good
watching the
television.
show longer.
So, you're gonna push this out again?
yeah,
Oh.
so I'll send this out right now.
You can send it out to me too.
I'll send it out to you.
I want to make sure I got the right meetings.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of important.
Oh, by the way, I just thought I would mention, that if you go on to, Chris's expanded, website for the town, and you go into the folder for, the accounting department, they have, there, the history of North Andover's Proposition 2.5 votes. Yeah, overrides. Yes, overrides. The ones that are approved and the ones that are not approved. And it goes back to, 1986. And it's so much fun to look at. Because most of this debt is falling off now. And we haven't done any more for a really long time. And we don't have to worry about this anymore.
Yeah.
At the moment, as long as we keep our feet on the ground. Oh, great, okay, that's what I'm mentioning.
Thank you. Good point.
No, I think we can adjourn. I'll send this.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
I
Aye.